1. We've got a real treat for you. A 1984 Chevrolet El Camino that's up for grabs on Craigslist. This beauty is priced at just $5,000. And let me tell you, it's a steal. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Is this car in good condition? Well, the seller has been pretty upfront about it. The El Camino has 87,154 miles on the odometer, which is not bad at all for a classic like this. The title is clean, and the transmission is automatic, so you won't have to worry about shifting gears. The seller has put in a lot of work to make sure this car is in top shape. They've replaced many parts, including the tires, and have even installed a true dual exhaust system with 2 Flowmasters. That means this baby is going to sound like a beast on the road. The seller has also been diligent about maintaining the car, with tons of receipts to prove it. They've recently serviced the transmission and changed the oil, so you can rest assured that this El Camino has been well taken care of. Now, the seller is letting go of this beauty because their daughter is getting married and they need the cash. It's a tough situation, but it's also an opportunity for you to get your hands on a classic car at a great price. The seller is asking for $5,000 firm, which is a fair price considering all the work that's gone into this car. And get this, there's 0 rust on this baby. That's a rare find for a car this old. The only downside is that the AC compressor needs to be replaced, but the seller says that everything is there, so it shouldn't be too much of a hassle to fix. Overall, this 1984 Chevrolet El Camino is a great find. It's a classic car with a clean title, low mileage, and a lot of recent upgrades. If you're serious about buying this car, make sure to have the cash ready and give the seller a call at the number provided. Don't miss out on this opportunity to own a piece of automotive history. 2. We've got a real gem for you. A 1964 Buick Wildcat that's up for sale on Craigslist. This classic beauty is priced at $11,500, and let me tell you, it's a rare find. First off, let's talk about the condition of this Wildcat. The seller has listed it as being in good condition, and from what I can see, it looks like they're being honest. The car has a clean title and has only 6,969 miles on the odometer, which is incredibly low for a car this age. Now, let's dive into the details. This Wildcat is a convertible, which means you can enjoy those summer drives with the top down. The seller mentions that they have a new top still in the box, so you won't have to worry about replacing it anytime soon. The top mechanism is also in good shape, so you shouldn't have any issues there. Under the hood, this Wildcat is powered by a 401 cubic inch V8 engine, which is paired with an automatic transmission. The seller notes that the car runs well and doesn't smoke, which is always a good sign. However, they do mention that the carburetor could use a rebuild, so keep that in mind if you're considering this car. One thing to note is that there are a few pinhole-sized rust spots in the driver's side floor pan. However, the seller assures us that the rest of the car is rust-free, which is a big plus for a classic car like this. The seller has also started a disc brake conversion on this Wildcat with the calipers and rotors already installed. However, it still needs to be finished up, so that's something to keep in mind if you're not mechanically inclined. Overall, this 1964 Buick Wildcat is a rare find and a great opportunity for any classic car enthusiast. It's one of only 7,800 built, and it's in good condition with low mileage. The seller is asking $11,500 or best offer, which seems like a fair price considering the rarity and condition of this car. If you're interested in this Wildcat, the seller encourages you to call or text them with any questions. They note that texting works best during the day. Don't miss out on the chance to own a piece of automotive history with this 1964 Buick Wildcat convertible. 3. We've got a fantastic find for you on Craigslist. A 1973 Ford Thunderbird Coupe that's sure to turn heads wherever you go. This classic beauty is priced at just $7,500, and it's a great opportunity for anyone looking for a vintage ride. Now, let's talk about the condition of this T-Bird. The seller has listed it as being in good condition, and from what I can see, they're not exaggerating. The car has been driven just 52 hours, 190 miles, which is relatively low for a vehicle of this age. The seller notes that you can either drive it as is or restore it to its former glory, depending on your preference. Under the hood, this Thunderbird is powered by a massive 429 big block V8 engine, which is sure to provide plenty of power and performance. The seller mentions that the car is in excellent running condition, so you won't have to worry about any major mechanical issues. Inside, the interior is in excellent shape with no tears or damage. The hardtop is also in excellent condition, so you can enjoy those summer drives with the top up or down. The radio, heat, and ACE all work, although the seller notes that the ACE needs to be recharged. The exterior of this T-Bird is in great shape as well, with the original paint still looking good. There is some light rust on the driver and passenger fenders, but it doesn't appear to be anything too serious. One of the best things about this Thunderbird is that the seller has recently replaced a ton of parts, including the water pump, alternator, air cleaner, exhaust manifolds, exhaust system, power steering pump, battery, brakes, and even the spare tire and jack in the trunk. They've also added some new chrome valve covers, which look great under the hood. Overall, this 1973 Ford Thunderbird Coupe is a fantastic find for anyone looking for a classic car with plenty of style and performance. It's in great condition, has been well maintained, and has a ton of new parts. The seller is asking just $7,500, which seems like a fair price considering the condition and upgrades. 4. We've got a classic 1969 Ford Galaxie 500 that's up for grabs on Craigslist. This vintage ride is priced at $8,500, and while it may not be in perfect condition, it's still a great find for anyone looking for a project car or a piece of automotive history. Now, let's talk about the condition of this Galaxie 500. The seller has listed it as being in fair condition, which means it may have some wear and tear, but it's still drivable. The car has been driven just 12,143 miles, which is relatively low for a vehicle of this age. Under the hood, this Galaxie 500 is powered by a 390 CI engine, which is paired with a C6 automatic transmission. The seller notes that the car runs and drives well, so you won't have to worry about any major mechanical issues. One of the best things about this Galaxie 500 is that it has new power disc brakes, which is a great upgrade from the original drum brakes. This means you'll have better stopping power and a safer driving experience overall. The exterior of this Galaxie 500 has a custom paint job, which may not be to everyone's taste. However, if you're looking for a unique and eye-catching ride, this could be a great option. Now, let's address the elephant in the room: the condition. The seller has been upfront about the fact that this car is in fair condition, which means it may have some cosmetic issues or minor mechanical problems. However, if you're handy with tools and enjoy working on cars, this could be a great project to take on. Overall, this 1969 Ford Galaxie 500 is a solid find for anyone looking for a classic car with plenty of potential. It may not be in perfect condition, but it runs and drives well, has some great upgrades, and is priced reasonably at $8,500. If you're interested in this Galaxie 500, I recommend reaching out to the seller and scheduling a time to check it out in person. Take a close look at the car and be sure to ask plenty of questions about its history and any issues it may have. With a little bit of work and some TLC, this 1969 Ford Galaxie 500 could be a real head-turner on the road. Who knows? It might just become your new favorite classic car. 5. We've got a real gem for you on Craigslist, a 1965 Oldsmobile Cutlass that's sure to make any classic car lover's heart skip a beat. This beauty is priced at $13,000, and based on the seller's description, it seems like a fair price for what you're getting. First off, let's talk about the condition of this Cutlass. The seller has listed it as being in good condition, which is always a promising sign. They mention that the car is rust-free, which is a huge plus for any classic car. Rust can be a real problem with older vehicles, so the fact that this Cutlass is rust-free is a major selling point. The seller also notes that the doors, floor, and trunk are all solid, which is another great sign. This means that the car has been well maintained and hasn't been neglected over the years. Under the hood, this Cutlass is powered by a 330 cubic inch engine, which is a nice size for a classic car like this. The seller doesn't mention any issues with the engine, so we can assume that it runs well and has been properly maintained. One of the nice upgrades on this Cutlass is the front disc brakes. Disc brakes provide better stopping power than the original drum brakes, so this is a great safety feature to have. The seller doesn't mention anything about the interior of the car, so we'll have to assume that it's in decent shape based on the overall condition of the vehicle. It would be worth asking the seller for more details about the interior, just to be sure. The odometer shows 110,000 miles, which is relatively low for a car of this age. Of course, it's always a good idea to verify the mileage and make sure that the odometer hasn't been tampered with. Overall, this 1965 Oldsmobile Cutlass seems like a great find for anyone looking for a classic car that's in good condition. The fact that it's rust-free and has solid doors, floor, and trunk is a huge plus, and the front disc brakes are a nice upgrade. The seller is asking $13,000 for this Cutlass, which may seem like a lot, but it's actually a pretty fair price for a classic car in this condition. Of course, it's always a good idea to do your own research and compare prices for similar vehicles before making a decision. If you're interested in this Cutlass, I recommend reaching out to the seller and scheduling a time to check it out in person. Bring a friend who knows classic cars and take your time looking over the vehicle. Make sure to ask plenty of questions and get a feel for how well the car has been maintained. 6. We've got a real gem for you on Craigslist, a 1965 Oldsmobile Cutlass that's sure to make any classic car lover's heart skip a beat. This beauty is priced at $13,000, and based on the seller's description, it seems like a fair price for what you're getting. First off, let's talk about the condition of this Cutlass. The seller has listed it as being in good condition, which is always a promising sign. They mention that the car is rust-free, which is a huge plus for any classic car. Rust can be a real problem with older vehicles, so the fact that this Cutlass is rust-free is a major selling point. The seller also notes that the doors, floor, and trunk are all solid, which is another great sign. This means that the car has been well maintained and hasn't been neglected over the years. Under the hood, this Cutlass is powered by a 330 cubic inch engine, which is a nice size for a classic car like this. The seller doesn't mention any issues with the engine, so we can assume that it runs well and has been properly maintained. One of the nice upgrades on this Cutlass is the front disc brakes. Disc brakes provide better stopping power than the original drum brakes, so this is a great safety feature to have. The seller doesn't mention anything about the interior of the car, so we'll have to assume that it's in decent shape based on the overall condition of the vehicle. It would be worth asking the seller for more details about the interior just to be sure. The odometer shows 110,000 miles, which is relatively low for a car of this age. Of course, it's always a good idea to verify the mileage and make sure that the odometer hasn't been tampered with. Overall, this 1965 Oldsmobile Cutlass seems like a great find for anyone looking for a classic car that's in good condition. The fact that it's rust-free and has solid doors, floor, and trunk is a huge plus, and the front disc brakes are a nice upgrade. The seller is asking $13,000 for this Cutlass, which may seem like a lot, but it's actually a pretty fair price for a classic car in this condition. Of course, it's always a good idea to do your own research and compare prices for similar vehicles before making a decision. 7. We've got a real treat for you on Craigslist, a 1978 Lincoln Continental Mark V that's up for grabs at just $7,500. This classic luxury coupe is a special edition Diamond Jubilee model, which means it's loaded with all the best features that Lincoln had to offer back in the day. Now let's talk about the condition of this Continental. The seller has listed it as being in fair condition, which means it may have some wear and tear, but it's still a solid car overall. With only 29,500 miles on the odometer, this Continental has been well preserved over the years. One of the best things about this Continental is that it's fully loaded with all the luxury features you could want. It's got power windows, power brakes, power seats, and even a power trunk. The air conditioning blows cold, which is a must-have for those hot summer days. And if you're a fan of vintage audio, you'll love the 8-track stereo system. The seller also mentions that everything on this Continental works, which is always a good sign. There's nothing worse than buying a classic car only to find out that half the features don't work. Now let's talk about the exterior. This Continental has a custom paint job, which may not be to everyone's taste, but if you're looking for a car that stands out from the crowd, this could be a great option. The body looks to be in decent shape with no major rust or damage mentioned. Under the hood, this Continental is powered by a big 8-cylinder engine, which is perfect for cruising down the highway in style. The seller doesn't mention any issues with the engine or transmission, so we can assume that they're in good working order. Overall, this 1978 Lincoln Continental Mark V is a great find for anyone looking for a classic luxury car at an affordable price. It may not be in perfect condition, but it's got all the features you could want and has been well maintained over the years. 8. We've got a real piece of automotive history for you on Craigslist. A 1951 Studebaker Land Cruiser that's up for grabs at just $7,000. This classic sedan is a rare find, and based on the seller's description, it seems like it's in pretty decent shape for its age. First off, let's talk about the condition of this Studebaker. The seller has listed it as being in fair condition, which is to be expected for a car that's over 70 years old. However, they also mention that there's no rust on the car, which is a huge plus. Rust can be a real problem with older vehicles, so the fact that this Studebaker is rust-free is a major selling point. The seller also notes that the car has its original paint and interior, which is pretty impressive for a car of this age. The black paint job looks classic and sleek, and the interior is sure to have that vintage charm that classic car lovers crave. Under the hood, this Studebaker is powered by a V8 engine, which is paired with a 3-speed manual transmission with overdrive. The seller doesn't mention any issues with the engine or transmission, so we can assume that they're in good working order. One of the nice upgrades on this Studebaker is the set of 5 new Coker tires. Coker tires are known for their quality and vintage look, so this is a great addition to the car. The odometer shows just 68,000 miles, which is relatively low for a car of this age. Of course, it's always a good idea to verify the mileage and make sure that the odometer hasn't been tampered with. The seller also mentions that the car is currently licensed and insured, which is a good sign. It means that the car is road ready and has been maintained well enough to pass inspection. Overall, this 1951 Studebaker Land Cruiser seems like a great find for anyone looking for a classic car with a lot of character. It may not be in perfect condition, but it's got a lot of original features and has been well maintained over the years. 9. We've got a real classic for you on Craigslist, a 1964 Ford Galaxie 500 that's up for grabs at just $9,500. This vintage sedan has been well maintained and modified with some serious performance upgrades, making it a great find for anyone looking for a classic car with a bit of extra power. First off, let's talk about the condition of this Galaxie. The seller has listed it as being in good condition, which is always a promising sign. However, they do mention a few minor issues, such as a torn headliner, worn seats, which have covers, and missing front carpet. These are all relatively minor issues that could be easily fixed if desired. Now let's talk about the real star of the show, The engine. This Galaxy has been fitted with a built 289 V8 engine that's been seriously upgraded. We're talking ported and polished 302 heads, a competition cam, an Edelbrock carburetor, manifold, and fuel pump, and even an MSD ignition system. This thing is built for performance, and it shows. The transmission has also been properly rebuilt, and it's a C4 automatic with a B&M Quicksilver shifter for smooth, precise shifting. The seller also mentions a Mylodon low-profile sump, Sanderson block hugger headers, and a flow cooler high-flow water pump, all of which are designed to keep this beast running cool and strong. The odometer shows just 4,707 miles, which is relatively low for a car of this age. Of course, it's always a good idea to verify the mileage and make sure that the odometer hasn't been tampered with. The seller also mentions that the car is currently registered until June 2025, which is a good sign. It means that the car is road ready and has been maintained well enough to pass inspection. One thing to note is that the BF Goodrich Radial TA tires are past their dot date, which means they may need to be replaced soon. This is something to keep in mind if you're planning on driving the car regularly. Overall, this 1964 Ford Galaxy 500 seems like a great find for anyone looking for a classic car with some serious performance upgrades. It may have a few minor cosmetic issues, but the engine and transmission more than make up for it. The seller is asking $9,500 for this Galaxy, which may seem like a lot for an older car, but it's actually a pretty fair price, considering the upgrades and overall condition of the vehicle. Of course, it's always a good idea to do your own research and compare prices for similar vehicles before making a decision. 10. We've got a real classic for you on Craigslist, a 1967 Dodge Coronet 440 that's up for grabs at just $12,000. This vintage coupe has been well maintained and has had a lot of recent work done, making it a great find for anyone looking for a classic car project. First off, let's talk about the condition of this Coronet. The seller has listed it as being in fair condition, which is to be expected for a car that's over 50 years old. However, they've also mentioned a lot of recent work that's been done to the car, including a new radiator, water pump, timing chain, fuel pump, and carburetor, as well as a rebuilt distributor and brakes. This shows that the seller has put a lot of effort into getting this car running well. Under the hood, this Coronet is powered by a 273 V8 engine, which is paired with a 3-speed manual transmission. The seller does mention that the transmission needs some work, as it can get stuck between gears if not shifted properly. This is something to keep in mind if you're not comfortable with manual transmissions or don't want to put in the work to repair it. The odometer shows just 24,800 miles, which is incredibly low for a car of this age. Of course, it's always a good idea to verify the mileage and make sure that the odometer hasn't been tampered with. The seller also mentions a few other issues with the car, such as needing a new gas tank, some interior work or seat covers, new window rubber, and trunk patches. These are all relatively minor issues that could be easily fixed if desired. One thing to note is that the seller has all the original parts that were removed from the car when replacing them with new ones. This is a great bonus for anyone looking to restore the car to its original condition. Overall, this 1967 Dodge Coronet 440 seems like a great find for anyone looking for a classic car project. It may need some work, but the seller has already put in a lot of effort to get it running well, and it has incredibly low mileage for its age. The seller is asking $12,000 for this Coronet, which may seem like a lot for a car that needs some work, but it's actually a pretty fair price considering the rarity and potential of this vehicle. Of course, it's always a good idea to do your own research and compare prices for similar vehicles before making a decision. 11. We've got a classic 1975 Oldsmobile Cutlass up for grabs on Craigslist for just $5,000. This vintage beauty is sure to turn heads wherever you go. Now, let's dive into the details. The seller hasn't provided a ton of information about the condition of the car, but they do mention that it's running well. That's always a good sign, especially for a car that's almost 50 years old. Under the hood, you'll find a 350 engine paired with an automatic transmission. The 350 was a popular engine choice for the Cutlass, and it's known for its reliability and power. The seller doesn't mention any issues with the engine or transmission, so we can assume they're in good working order. The odometer shows 100,000 miles, which is pretty reasonable for a car of this age. Of course, it's always a good idea to verify the mileage and make sure the odometer hasn't been tampered with. One thing to note is that the seller hasn't provided any information about the overall condition of the car. They don't mention any rust, dents, or other cosmetic issues, so we'll have to assume that the car is in decent shape. However, it's always a good idea to inspect the car in person and look for any potential problems. The seller also hasn't provided any photos of the interior, so we don't know what kind of shape it's in. It's possible that the seats, dashboard, and other interior components may need some work, especially if the car has been sitting for a while. Despite these unknowns, this 1975 Oldsmobile Cutlass is still a great find for anyone looking for a classic car at an affordable price. The 350 engine and automatic transmission are a great combination, and the car has the potential to be a real head-turner with a little bit of work. The seller is asking $5,000 for this Cutlass, which is a fair price for a running and driving classic car. Of course, it's always a good idea to do your own research and compare prices for similar vehicles before making a decision. 12. We've got a real gem for you on Craigslist, a 1964 Ford Galaxie 500 XL that's up for grabs at just $12,000. This classic beauty is a true time capsule with matching numbers and a ton of original features that are sure to make any vintage car lover swoon. First off, let's talk about the engine. This Galaxie is powered by the original 390 V8, which is a real powerhouse. The seller mentions that the car has recently been fitted with a new starter, and they were able to successfully start the engine and move the car a short distance. That's a great sign that the engine is in good working order. The transmission is a floor shift automatic, which is a really cool feature that adds to the vintage feel of the car. The seller also mentions that the original owner's manual is still in the glove box, which is a nice touch. Now let's talk about the condition of the car. The seller is upfront about the fact that the paint is weathered, but they also note that the body is in good condition overall, with all the trim still present. That's a big plus for a car that's almost 60 years old. However, the seller does mention one major issue with the car. It currently lacks brakes. This means that the car cannot be driven in its current condition, and it will need some work to get it back on the road. This is definitely something to keep in mind if you're considering this car, as it will require some additional investment to get it up and running. The odometer shows just 507 miles, which is incredibly low for a car of this age. Of course, it's always a good idea to verify the mileage and make sure that the odometer hasn't been tampered with. Overall, this 1964 Ford Galaxie 500 XL is a real find for anyone looking for a classic car with a ton of original features. It may need some work to get it back on the road, but the matching numbers engine and transmission, along with the good overall condition of the body, make it a worthwhile investment for the right buyer. 13. We've got a real classic for you on Craigslist, a 1961 Ford Falcon that's up for grabs at just $12,000. This vintage sedan is a true daily driver, with a clean and original look that's sure to turn heads wherever you go. First off, let's talk about the condition of this Falcon. The seller describes it as a turnkey car, which means it's ready to go as soon as you turn the key. That's always a great sign for a classic car, as it means you won't have to spend a ton of time and money getting it up and running. The seller also mentions that the car is a daily driver, which is a testament to its reliability and durability. It's not often that you find a classic car that's been well maintained enough to be driven every day. So, this is definitely a big plus. Now let's talk about the exterior. The seller notes that the car is currently in white primer, which gives it a cool, stripped-down look. While some buyers might prefer a fully painted car, there's something to be said for the raw, original look of a classic car in primer. Under the hood, the seller doesn't provide a ton of details about the engine, but they do mention that the car is a manual transmission. This is a great feature for anyone who loves the feeling of shifting gears and really connecting with their car. The odometer shows 79,000 miles, but the seller notes that it has rolled over. This means that the actual mileage is likely much higher, but it's difficult to say for sure. As with any classic car, it's always a good idea to have a mechanic inspect the vehicle before making a purchase. Overall, this 1961 Ford Falcon is a great find for anyone looking for a classic daily driver with a ton of character. It may not be the most flashy or fully restored car out there, but it's got a clean, original look and a reliable manual transmission that make it a great choice for anyone who loves to drive. 14. We've got a real classic for you on Craigslist. A 1958 Chevrolet Biscayne that's up for grabs at just $9,500. This vintage sedan has been well maintained and updated with some sweet custom features that make it a real standout. First off, let's talk about the engine. This Biscayne is powered by a 350 4-barrel V8 with about 68,000 miles on it. That's a great engine choice for a classic car like this, as it provides plenty of power and reliability. The seller also mentions that the engine has lots of new parts, which is always a good sign. The transmission is a 400 turbo that was rebuilt about a year ago, so you can expect smooth and reliable shifting. The seller also notes that the car has custom linkage that puts the shifting back on the column, which is a really cool and unique feature. Now, let's talk about the overall condition of the car. The seller describes it as being in good condition, which is always a plus for a classic car. The odometer is broken, so the actual mileage is unknown, but the seller estimates it to be around 68,000 miles based on the condition of the engine. The exterior of the car is painted a nice shade of blue, which gives it a classic and timeless look. The seller doesn't mention any major rust or body damage, so we can assume that the car is in solid shape overall. Inside, the seller doesn't provide a ton of details about the interior, but they do mention that the car comes with some new parts, including a custom fuse and wiring system. This is a great addition for anyone who wants to upgrade the electrical system on their classic car. The seller also notes that the car starts, runs, and drives very nicely, which is always a great sign for a classic car. It's not always easy to find a vintage car that's in good running condition, so this is definitely a big plus. Overall, this 1958 Chevrolet Biscayne is a great find for anyone looking for a classic car with some unique custom features. The 350 V8 engine and rebuilt 400 turbo transmission make it a reliable and powerful driver, while the custom shifting linkage and new electrical parts add some extra cool factor. The seller is asking $9,500 for this Biscayne, which is a fair price for a classic car in this condition. Of course, it's always a good idea to do your own research and compare prices for similar vehicles before making a decision. If you're interested in this Biscayne, I recommend reaching out to the seller and scheduling a time to check it out in person. Bring a friend who knows classic cars and take your time looking over the vehicle. Make sure to ask plenty of questions and get a feel for how well the car has been maintained. 15. We've got a real gem for you on Craigslist, a 1963 Plymouth Valiant V200 convertible that's up for grabs at just $6,800. This classic drop top is a real head-turner, with its sleek red paint and vintage styling that's sure to make you the talk of the town. First off, let's talk about the engine. This Valiant is powered by a slant 6.225 engine, which is a reliable and efficient power plant that's known for its durability. The seller doesn't mention any issues with the engine, so we can assume that it runs smoothly and provides plenty of power for cruising around town. The transmission is a push-button automatic, which is a really cool and unique feature that adds to the vintage charm of this car. The seller also mentions that the car has an electric top, which is a great convenience feature that makes it easy to drop the top and enjoy the sunshine. Now, let's talk about the overall condition of the car. The seller describes it as being in good condition, which is always a plus for a classic car. The odometer shows just 15,573 miles, but the seller notes that it has rolled over, so the actual mileage is likely much higher. However, the seller also mentions that they've been using this car as their daily driver, except when it's raining. So we can assume that it's been well maintained and is in good running condition. The exterior of the car is painted a beautiful shade of red, which really makes it stand out on the road. The seller also mentions that the car has 1963 stamped black plates, which is a cool and authentic touch. Inside, the seller has installed seat belts and rear shoulder harnesses, which is a great safety feature for anyone who wants to take their kids or grandkids for a ride. The seller also notes that the brakes have been replaced within the last 2 years, which is another important safety feature. Overall, this 1963 Plymouth Valiant V200 convertible is a great find for anyone looking for a fun and reliable classic car. It's got a smooth-running engine, a cool push-button automatic transmission, and a sleek red paint job that's sure to turn heads wherever you go. 16. We've got a real treat for you, a 1964 Chevrolet Corvair that's up for grabs on Craigslist. This classic beauty is a convertible model, perfect for those sunny drives and turning heads wherever you go. The seller is asking $6,000 for this gem, which seems like a pretty fair deal considering its age and condition. Now let's dive into the details. The ad mentions that this Corvair is a Spider model, which means it's equipped with a peppy 140 motor. That's definitely a plus for those who love a bit of extra power under the hood. The seller also states that the car runs and drives, so you won't have to worry about towing it home or spending countless hours just to get it started. However, it's important to note that the seller describes this Corvair as a good project car. This implies that while it's functional, it may require some work to get it into tip-top shape. The odometer reading is at 100, but it's unclear if that's 100 miles or 100,000 miles. Given the age of the car, it's more likely the latter. The ad also specifies that the car has a clean title, which is always a good sign. You won't have to deal with any legal headaches or ownership disputes. Plus, the manual transmission adds to the classic driving experience that many enthusiasts crave. While the seller doesn't provide a detailed description of the car's condition, it's safe to assume that a 57-year-old vehicle will have some wear and tear. It may need some cosmetic work, mechanical tweaks, or even a full restoration, depending on your goals and preferences. Overall, if you're looking for a fun project car with a cool factor that's hard to beat, this 1964 Chevrolet Corvair convertible could be a great choice. It's got the right mix of style, performance, and potential, all at a price that won't break the bank. Just be prepared to put in some work to make it truly shine. As always, we recommend thoroughly inspecting the car in person and taking it for a test drive before making any final decisions. 17. We've got a real treat for you. A rare 1979 Cadillac Seville Milan that's up for grabs on Craigslist. This unique convertible is one of approximately 500 built, making it a true collector's item. The seller is asking $12,900 for this beauty, which might seem steep at first glance, but let's dive into the details to see what makes this car so special. First off, let's talk about the conversion. The Milan was transformed in Florida, giving it that classic convertible look that's sure to turn heads wherever you go. But this car isn't just about looks. It's got some serious power under the hood. In the early 90s, the original engine was replaced with an Oldsmobile 455 and paired with a turbo 400 transmission. That's a lot of muscle for a luxury car. Now, the seller mentions that the car was put into storage on a lift soon after the engine swap, which is both good and bad news. On the one hand, it means that the car hasn't been driven much since then, potentially preserving its condition. On the other hand, it also means that it may need some extra TLC to get it back into top shape after sitting for so long. The good news is that the seller has already taken some steps to get the Milan roadworthy again. The fuel system has been cleaned, a new gas tank and battery have been installed, and the car is said to run and drive very well. The seller also notes that everything seems to work, which is always a plus for a classic car. However, there are a couple of potential drawbacks to keep in mind. The air conditioning compressor is missing a belt, so you might need to address that before the summer heat kicks in. And perhaps most importantly, the car is being sold with an old registration and bill of sale, but the title status is listed as missing. That could make it tricky to register the car in your name, so be sure to look into your local laws and regulations before making a decision. Overall, this 1979 Cadillac Seville Milan is a unique and intriguing classic car. It's got a powerful engine, a rare convertible conversion, and a lot of potential for the right buyer. Just be prepared to put in some work to get it fully up to speed, and make sure you're comfortable with the title situation before taking the plunge. 18. We've got a real gem for you. A 1983 Cadillac Fleetwood that's up for grabs on Craigslist. This luxurious sedan is in excellent condition according to the seller, and it can be yours for just $12,500. Let's take a closer look at what makes this Caddy so special. First off, the seller emphasizes that this Fleetwood has never been driven in the winter, which is a huge plus for a classic car. Winter driving means salt, snow, and all sorts of nasty things that can cause rust and other damage over time. But this Cadillac has been spared from all that, and the seller claims there's no rust at all. That's a testament to the care and attention this car has received over the years. Speaking of care, the seller also notes that they've always maintained the car, with regular greasing and oil changes every 3,000 miles. They even go so far as to specify that they only use Delco oil filters, which is a nice touch. It's clear that this Fleetwood has been loved and pampered by its owner. Now, let's talk about the specs. This Caddy is powered by a beefy 8-cylinder engine and has a smooth shifting automatic transmission. It's a rear-wheel drive car, which is what you'd expect from a classic American luxury sedan. The odometer shows 138,000 miles, but the seller notes that it has rolled over, so the actual mileage is likely higher. Still, with proper maintenance, these cars can easily go well beyond that. The paint color is listed as brown, which may not be everyone's cup of tea, but it's a classic color that suits the era and the car's style. And if you're worried about the paint fading or getting damaged, fear not. The seller mentions that they keep the car covered and stored in a dark garage when not in use. Other important details include a clean title, which is always a good sign, and the fact that the car is being sold as is. That means you'll want to give it a thorough inspection before making a decision, just to make sure there aren't any hidden issues. Overall, this 1983 Cadillac Fleetwood seems like a great find for the right buyer. It's been well maintained, has no rust, and comes with a clean title. The price may be a bit steep for some, but for a classic car in this condition, it's not unreasonable. Just be prepared to give it the same level of care and attention that the current owner has, and you'll have a stunning piece of American automotive history to enjoy for years to come. 19. We've got a real treat for you. A 1964 Chevrolet Nova 2 that's up for grabs on Craigslist. This sweet ride is priced at $14,500, and it's got a lot going for it. Let's dive in and see what makes this Nova so special. First off, let's talk about that engine. This Nova is packing a freshly built 355-stroker V8, which is sure to put a grin on your face every time you hit the gas. Paired with an automatic transmission, this car is ready to cruise down the highway or tear up the drag strip. The seller notes that the car runs, drives, and stops, which is always a good sign. But what really sets this Nova apart is its potential. The seller describes it as a good, solid car that's ready to be taken to the next level. Whether you want to keep it as a daily driver or turn it into a full-blown show car, this Nova is a great starting point. And if you're a fan of manual transmissions, you're in luck. The seller is including a 4-speed manual transmission, bell housing, and linkage, so you can convert it if you want. The seller also mentions that they're including new carpet, headliner, and interior panels, which is a nice bonus. It's always good to have fresh interior components, especially if you're planning on spending a lot of time behind the wheel. Now, let's talk about the condition. The seller rates it as good, which is a solid assessment based on the photos and description. The odometer shows just 27,000 miles, which is pretty low for a car of this age. Of course, it's possible that the odometer has rolled over, so you'll want to check that out before making a decision. Other important details include a clean title, which is always a plus, and the fact that the car is located in North Lebanon Township, Payay. The seller is willing to deliver the car within the Mid-Atlantic, Northeast, and New England regions, which is a nice perk if you're not local. Overall, this 1964 Chevrolet Nova 2 seems like a great find for the right buyer. It's got a strong engine, a solid foundation, and a lot of potential for customization. The price may be a bit steep for some, but considering the included extras and the car's condition, it's not unreasonable. Just be sure to give it a thorough inspection before making a decision, and be prepared to put in some work to make it truly your own. 20. We've got a real beauty for you. A 1975 Lincoln Continental Mark V that's up for grabs on Craigslist. This luxurious sedan is in excellent condition according to the seller, and it can be yours for just $12,500. Let's take a closer look at what makes this Lincoln so special. First off, can we talk about that stunning red paint job? The photos show a deep, rich color that's sure to turn heads wherever you go. And with just 59,000 miles on the odometer, this Continental has a lot of life left in it. The seller notes that it's a driver, which means you can enjoy it on the road right away. Under the hood, you'll find a massive 460 V8 engine that's sure to provide plenty of power and torque. The seller mentions that it runs great, which is always a good sign. And with a smooth, shifting automatic transmission and rear-wheel drive, this Lincoln is built for cruising in style. But what really sets this Continental apart is its interior. The seller describes it as beautiful, and based on the photos, we have to agree. The red leather seats look plush and inviting, and the wood grain accents add a touch of classic elegance. It's the kind of interior that makes you want to put on your best suit and take a leisurely drive through the countryside. Other important details include a clean title, which is always a plus, and the fact that the seller is offering delivery. That's a nice perk if you're not local to the area or if you don't want to deal with the hassle of transporting the car yourself. Now, let's talk about the price. At $12,500, this Lincoln Continental Mark V is certainly not cheap. But when you consider the excellent condition, low mileage, and stunning interior, it starts to look like a pretty good deal. These cars are becoming increasingly rare and desirable among collectors, so it's not surprising to see a price tag like this. Of course, as with any classic car purchase, you'll want to give it a thorough inspection before making a decision. Check for any signs of rust, damage, or mechanical issues, and make sure all the features and amenities are working as they should. But if everything checks out, this 1975 Lincoln Continental Mark V could be a real gem. Overall, if you're in the market for a classic American luxury car with plenty of style and presence. This Lincoln Continental Mark V is definitely worth a look. It's got a great color combo, low mileage, and a beautiful interior, all for a price that's not too crazy in today's market. Just be prepared to turn some heads and field some questions from curious onlookers. This car is sure to attract attention wherever it goes.